that as I prepared my thoughts on how I actually wanted to introduce the mayor, and I get the opportunity to introduce him every year, and kind of what I wanted to say was the fact that I can remember 10 years ago sitting in my office, and Mayor Mouton, at that time, Mr. Mouton, Jerry, we would sit in my office, and lots of times he'd drop by late in the afternoons, or he'd come by early in the morning, and we'd just sit there and we'd just visit and talk. And what I've been able to see over a 10-year period is a man that has grown, and has grown exponentially. I know him to be a very spiritual man, and I know he leans on that daily. I know he loves his family deeply. I know he loves our chamber and loves to be a part of our organization. But I've also seen him expand his knowledge and his wisdom by the fact that he's gone back to school, and man, I admire him for that and that service, and that's not an easy task. But I admire him for that and that dedication. But at no point in time during all of that did he ever waver from his commitment as mayor to this city. And at no point in time have we ever seen him more committed to this city. I mean, we've seen him go through hurricanes and fires and all of those different issues that we don't expect to go through. But when we do have to go through it, there's no better man to have leading our city than Jerry Mouton. And with that, I would like to ask you to please welcome him to the stage at this time.
Thank you, Tim. He had me until he started saying something nice about me, and it's like it went downhill from there. Thank you all for being here. Let me start out by recognizing the head table and my wife who sits at the head table. To all my friends, some who drove across town, and I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge someone I eat breakfast with almost every day. Now, you'd have to understand the context, but for what it's worth, thanks for being here, Potato Jack. Now, y'all didn't think that was funny, but I think it was funny. Because every day, in most cases, we eat at a taqueria. And since he always insists on having potatoes in his tacos, now the waitress just calls him Potato Jack. So it's just something that we just, Potato Jack. Thanks for coming, Potato Jack. So to the neighboring mayors, I could go on here for a while, but my respect for what you do, your friendships, the advice that I've been able to harness from each of you, I appreciate all that you do for this East End, and it's a pleasure to stand beside you and working with you to make sure we do the right thing for this region and our community. Commissioner, thank you for being here. We had only met a few times until we had an interesting incident, and I think our relationship grew substantially in a very, very short amount of time, as you would have expected. And I appreciate you being here, and thank you for taking your time. To council, let's give our council a great hand as I recognize them. Thank each of you so much for your dedication to this community and your hard work, and a lot of what we're going to go over today you'll see is basically a collaboration of all of our efforts that we've put together from our strategic plans. And so it's a tremendous honor of mine to represent each of you today up here as we present the State of the City address for today. To staff, I know Mr. Stokes found a fabulous reason not to have to be here today, and I commend him for that. But between him, Mr. Jackson, all the department heads, thank you so much for what you do. And I hope today you're proud for some of the stuff that we'll be showing today, because a lot of this is what you do, providing the services that you do for our community. So with that said, let's get started. Simon Sinek, start with why. Now, if any of you are wondering why I've got this big marker board back here, and you've connected the dots that I'm in school, I'll just say misery enjoys company, so welcome. So if you've seen any aspect of Simon and a lot of what he promotes, he likes to draw circles like I'm doing. Why, how, and what? He's got a book that deals with this, and it's about strategic leaderships and organizations. And he defines the difference between organizations that are successful or the ones that start with the why. And yet, there's many examples that most organizations start with what and how, and then they ultimately get to why. Why is your purpose? Why is what you do? Why you do what you do? So today I wanted to start out with this. In this connectivity of redefining the actual aspect of why we do what we do in the city of Deer Park, in your local government, the services that we provide. Most of what we're going to see today is about what we do and how we do it. But I want this whole speech to be centered around the basic concept of why. This is why we do what we do. Every year, when we go through processes regarding to our strategic plan, every 5 years we update that. We just did it this past year. We always go back to our vision and mission statement, making sure that we are lining up our strategies in regards to our purpose. City of Deer Park is here to deliver exemplary municipal services that provide the community a high quality of life consistent with our history, our culture, and our unique character. We're going to cover some aspects of sources of funding that provide the services that we provide in the city of Deer Park and how they're allocated. And if you look on your table, we've got a pamphlet that covers in depth a lot more detail. Please feel free to get it out, take it with you. But it'll cover a lot of the revenue sources and how they're implemented in very critical fashions for the services that are provided. Senate Bill 2. If you're in politics, you know a little bit about that. It was a revenue cap strategies that the state, in their infinite wisdom, thought they would implement in some aspects of being able to control or decrease property tax growth. As in most cases, when I get into these scenarios, I don't want to depend upon an opinion, so I just try to deal with the facts. In the last 10 plus years, we've managed to average about 2.9% in our revenue growth. And so in the big picture of things, what's the big deal if it drops down to 3.5%? Well, the problem is, in any aspect of the economy, as most of you know, it never goes up. What does it do? It goes up, it goes down. It goes up, sometimes it goes right down. So when I say 2.9%, it's an average. But in the reality of the last 10 years, we had 4 years where the overall aspect dropped between 7 to 10%. And some of the implementations of this Senate Bill 2 are going to impact the budget and the services that we provide in dealing with how do we manage all this. If in this past year, in a budget comparison, it would have reduced our revenue approximately about $1 million. So we're going to look at some aspects of how that's going to impact the city. This is a brief example of how the property taxes across the board are actually collected and what percentage goes to what entity in this region. Interesting fact about the city of Deer Park, with our average home value being roughly $180,000, The average tax you pay in the city of Deer Park is approximately $1,000 a year. We're one of few cities in the state of Texas that offers the maximum exemptions on your homestead exemptions, which was surprising to me when we first got into some of that. And why doesn't everybody offer that? But we've been doing that from the very beginning, and some of our previous councils and forefathers were very wise in how they set a lot of that up. Here's how it breaks down and how everything is funded. We're going to focus on that 78% today as we go through about 3 different areas of how we implement and how we fund these sources. So we're going to deal with public safety, quality of life, and public works. Public safety, maintenance, and operation. How many people remember that? Makes you stop for a minute. It does for me, because it brings back a lot of memories. Commissioner, you have some memories when you see that? And I would say, I thought about what I want to say here. I'll say this. I am so proud of the first responders from our city and this region and how they responded to this event. It was interesting how it evolved. I pray we never have to go through that again. But if we do, I'm very confident we are as prepared as we can be in this region to deal with these kind of issues moving forward. Life-saving awards. I'm always proud when we get the opportunity to recognize some of our first responders. And I was looking at these pictures again this morning, and in most cases you'd think that would go to the EMS, but a lot of times what you find is the police officers are the first ones to the event, and sometimes the first few minutes are so critical to certain things that are done, which impacts whether or not someone makes it depending on the situation. So it's always an honor when we get to recognize some of our officers that had a positive impact in responding to a situation.
To discuss public safety efforts for the City of Deer Park, Mayor Mouton invited Andrew Smith, Assistant Chief of Deer Park Emergency Medical Services, and Philip Arroyo, Assistant Chief of the Deer Park Volunteer Fire Department, to share their thoughts about large-scale incidents, like the fire incident of early 2019, to the day-to-day efforts of each group.
For us at the Deer Park Volunteer Fire Department, I think one of our biggest priorities are the preparedness of our department. Whether it's that 1-minute call, 10-minute call, or the 1-week calls, we need to be prepared to respond. I feel we have the people and the resources to respond adequately and strongly. I think the incident at the Intercontinental Terminal's fire in 2019 showed that we were capable to stand up against these times.
It's the same for Deer Park EMS. The ongoing training we provide for our fire and EMS personnel allows us to stay up to date on emerging trends, which ensures we'll be effective in our service to the citizens. The day-to-day needs of the community are always a priority, even when we're faced with major incidents, so we need everyone to be trained and prepared to handle anything that may arise.
Yes, training is important, and so is having the state-of-the-art equipment and vehicles. This reminds me of how we were able to provide critical staff and equipment during ITC, aligning our efforts of the department with those of Channel Industry Mutual Aid, or SEMA.
Absolutely. Having sufficient fleet support, in our case, enough ambulances to respond on days with high call volumes, also allows us to effectively manage the needs of our community.
All of these elements, our department, the staffing of the vehicles, the training and the equipment, are only as effective as the paid staff and the volunteers that make up our organizations. Whether it's working one-on-one with citizens in need or managing large-scale incidents, our firefighters and paramedics do this job because they want to help people.
Exactly. It's all about having an impact on other people. We receive letters of gratitude and phone calls of support all the time, even in-person comments when we're out in the community, and that means a lot to us. Having the support of our residents, especially those we've worked closely with on hard days, makes all the difference.
Well, I think we can both agree that it's a privilege to serve our community and to provide assistance, sometimes even saving lives. Whether it's during a large-scale incident or interacting one-on-one with a resident or family, we're here to do our part.
Remember, the focus today is on why we do what we do. Why is it important that we fund the aspects of our first responders to the tune that we do to make sure they are equipped and ready and able to respond to incidents? LEPC, I guess most people in the room would know what that is. Does everybody in the room know what that is? Local emergency planning. It's a really important factor in how do we keep ourselves prepared by reaching out to our neighbors, our industry partners, our neighboring cities working together. And I'm always proud to see that collaborative effort, especially when you get into the magnitude of an incident that it was as large as the one at ITC, where every day that I went out there, it was someone being represented from one of our cities, one of our neighboring industry partners, and it was always a coincidence for me how I always ran into somebody, whether they were from our own fire department or another responding unit that tended to live in Deer Park, which just always got me in regards to the focus of what I had to maintain going through that event. But an interesting statistic, and I know the chief here, I believe the chief was the one that heard it at a conference a few years ago, and correct me if I was wrong, chief, but he was in a session and there was a statistic being thrown around that if you were going to have a heart attack, the best place to have a heart attack was in Deer Park. Sounds kind of funny when you say it that way, until you get into the statistics of why he was using that, because by calculated percentages, the best recovery or making it through was here in Deer Park because of the response time and the necessary resources they had to make the appropriate decisions that needed to make sure that individual survived. And that's a statistic that I always carry with me because I think it's really important. Our Emergency Medical Services Station, which we just opened up here recently, again, responding to aspect of preparing for the future. Call volumes were reaching a certain status collectively between the city, the fire department, everybody involved. This was necessary to make sure we are prepared to deal with the needs moving forward. A great collaboration between the city, the fire and crime districts, which is a sales tax initiative that I'm very appreciative to the voters to have passed that to allow us to be able to allocate funds to these type of initiatives. Our animal shelter. This has been This has been a tremendous project that I'm very proud of, and it's been an asset to our community. We've got here Al Garza, who is with us today, and I kind of joked at him when he came in. I'm like, you look really nice, all dressed up. I said, you must have found out you were in the presentation today. He got that award because he was nominated, let me go back, by a peer from another city that was recognizing his efforts that he had made at the animal shelter between him and our public relations departments and the work that they've done on social media. We've had tremendous success in getting most of all of the animals adopted out. And to the point that other people are starting to ask questions in regards to, what is Al doing? Al, what are you doing? You're doing a great job. Thank you for everything that you do, Al. Our police department, this year they had the 40th graduation class of the Citizens Police Academy. Is there anybody here that's been through that? Raise your hand if you've been through that. It's a tremendous experience. I would encourage any of you that might be remotely interested to sign up and go through this. It's a tremendous way to understand and connect with the understanding of what they do on a daily basis. And it's a very intense class. I don't remember exactly how many weeks. I want to say it's 12 weeks or so. But it was tremendous to be able to go through and understand what they do and how important that is to provide that service. Moving on to quality of life. Set up and watch a video here now.
First, we'll hear from Chad Highland, president of Deer Park Girls Softball.
It means a lot to us at Deer Park Girls Softball to have these state-of-the-art facilities in Deer Park. Through our connection with youth sports, we have the unique opportunity to help our kids grow and become positive and active role models in society. We not only want to develop great softball players and great coaches, but great people that use youth sports as a platform to make a difference.
Next up, we have Michael Grant, president of Deer Park Soccer FC.
Youth sports can provide a learning environment that impacts our kids far beyond the playing fields. Having a safe environment in which to learn these sports gives our kids lessons in fair play, the importance of hard work, team building, and community pride. As a Deer Park resident, the impact of quality programming for our youth is essential in maintaining a vibrant, family-friendly community that attracts people to our city and helps maintain quality of life and property values.
Finally, we'll hear from Jacob Guerra, president of Deer Park Pony Baseball.
Having state-of-the-art youth sports facilities does something very special for our community. Amenities like the Spencer View Athletic Complex give our kids a home away from home, where they can not only fall in love with the game of baseball, but they can also learn many other skills provided them by participating in youth sports. The Deer Park community is all the better for having projects like this and many other projects funded by the Type B.
Remember, why? We're focusing on why today. Why do we do all this? Because it contributes to the overall quality of life. I know we've got several here from the Sports Association. Thank you so much for your contributions. You know, I've told some people before, if you think politics is tough, you should have to deal with sports associations in regards to the big. And the unique thing is they're so passionate about what they do. And did you catch what all was in that? It was our future. That's our kids. That's the next generation of leaders. We're building and developing the next generation of leaders by making sure we have a good, safe place to play. The Type B was referred to there at the end of that video, which I hope everybody understands what the Type B is. It's really important funding source that we have used specifically to allocate in quality of life initiatives. All of these complexes have been rebuilt from the ground up, with the exception of the soccer, and it was a brand new development from the ground up. So it was a tremendous opportunity to work through these processes as council and the associations, our parks and rec boards, and the CDC working together to provide a better quality of life for the future. Here's the soccer complex, brand new complex, 6 fields, 4 of them lit. Deer Park Nature Preserve. This has been an interesting project. It came to my attention after I became mayor that we had this designated area that was given to the city a number of years ago in regards to preserving it as a nature preserve. And over the last few years, I know our Parks Department worked really hard to make sure we developed this in part of our strategic plan, and the council working together. And now we've got a gem of something that we hope to expand here in the future by adding more aspects to it right in the middle of Deer Park, right off Underwood and East Boulevard and 13th Street, 17 acres. Makes you want to go walk outdoors, doesn't it, on that nice track. Community Center. As some of you may know, if not, we've authorized to put the Type B back on the ballot this coming May to reauthorize the Type B. The Type B is a sales tax initiative where half a penny is allocated toward this Community Development Corporation aspect, and all of that funding is oriented toward quality life initiatives. It's how we paid for all these sports complexes. We've got some pictures coming up on the Deer Park Pavilion, but in this particular case, there was no initiative to go build a new facility. We initially had looked at investing in rehabilitating the building and adding an indoor aquatic therapeutic pool. That's a tongue twister. And when we got into this scenario, we're looking at a facility that was 40 plus years old, that had a lot of structural issues, and it was just deemed that it wasn't worth investing in that building. So we've looked at putting the Type B back on the ballot as a funding source. And there's been some in the community that's criticized me for making statements that I'm fixing to make. So 70% of all the sales tax that is funded in the city of Deer Park is paid for by people that don't live in Deer Park. Now, that's not my opinion. That's state statistical data in regards to sales tax that are paid for at the point of service provided. It's a tremendous way to fund things in our community by people that live and work and in our community, but yet don't live here. So for 70 cents of every dollar that comes through this is paid for by people that don't live in Deer Park. I mean, what's the only other option? We can just put it on the ad valorem aspect in this. But every community uses this very strategically. It's just part of the way we evolve. Pasadena does a tremendous amount of theirs, and I know some of your economic board is here, and I have a lot of respect for what y'all do in Pasadena and how y'all use that to enhance Pasadena. Here, am I talking good about Pasadena? Did that just come out of my mouth? I'm sorry. Let me move on here. I'm sorry, Jeff. The Maxwell Center. This was an initiative out of the Type B that we were able to rehab that facility and enhance it and repurpose some space, and it's been a tremendous success. The Dow Park Pavilion, adding a mini amphitheater in the middle of Dow Park, which has been tremendous, where we have a lot of concerts during the summer and have a lot more covered areas for families that want to enjoy the park. Public Works. This next video is pretty cool, and I think it'll make you smile when you see it.
Well, when a Deer Park family's beloved Yorkie went missing, the community came together to help. ABC 13's Deborah Wrigley spoke with the dog's owner and the city workers who came to the rescue. It is a story you will only see right here on ABC.
Her name is Penny, a tiny 5-pound Yorkie who went on an adventure from which she nearly didn't return. It began Wednesday afternoon when Mary Lemus brought in groceries to the house and left the door open.
I thought all the dogs were in there, and they weren't.
Only Pebbles, the family's other Yorkie. Penny was gone and Mary was in a panic.
And that's when we started asking our neighbors, have you seen my dog? Have you seen my dog?
Penny is her son's dog who lives with his parents. He and his girlfriend had tickets to Game 2 of the World Series. But when he got the call from his mom...
Immediately, so I was going to get out of work a little early to be able to leave for the game and get there on time. I still left work early to be able to go and search for Penny.
Someone told the family that the dog was seen crossing Center Street in traffic. Missing dog flyers circulated. Wednesday night came and went. Another tip indicated the pup was seen near a storm drain in the area. Mary brought in the experts.
And we're like, we better call the city.
The city of Deer Park's Water and Sewer Department, less than an hour before shift ended, the 3 guys who could help jumped on it.
They just said a little dog was in the storm drain, and last time they saw it, and I grabbed Benny. I said, let's go.
It required walking into the storm sewer, listening for any sign of life. This is the moment Penny was found. She was saved a few hours before a cold front brought a lot of rain, which she wouldn't have survived. Nothing short, one of the rescuers says, of a miracle.
I think it happened all because of God, too. If it was from him calling us to her to help the dog out, we never would have got the dog.
This tiny Yorkie back in the arms of her owner thanks to some city workers who went above and beyond for a little lost dog and the family who loves her.
This community here in Deer Park came together to help us find Penny.
Deborah Wrigley, ABC 13 Eyewitness News.
Quite the rescue indeed.
I tell my wife quite often, in my next life, I want to be her dog, not her husband. Understanding where you rank on the totem pole in regards to the dog, the husband, the dogs always win. So that's what even makes that story even that much more important, dogs are not just your pets, they're family. They sleep in the bed with you. They get fed before I do most of the time. Moving on to more important stuff. I'm sure I'll pay for that later. Wastewater treatment plant expansion. I won't tell you what I said when we were going over this. Kristen might know, but we spent a lot of money in this area to process stuff. It's not funny, Tim. What are you laughing at? It's really important. We're in the last stage of a 10-year investment to making sure that the next 25 to 50 years our infrastructure is ready to handle what it needs. Very proud to be investing in our infrastructure. Drainage. We were, that Harvey thing, do y'all remember that? It goes back, what, 17, 18? It was 17, wasn't it? We were in the EOC, and I think it was Wade Connor who's here, and it was about a 3 or 4 day process. We just wouldn't quit raining. And I remember him saying, because it just impacted me. It's like, well, no one's ever going to remember Allison after this. And it does. It kind of puts it into perspective, because when you look at the actual rain total amounts, it was twice as much as what we had in Allison. And the unfortunate thing is we had a lot of homes that had water in it. Water with an R. That's how we say it in Louisiana. Water. Everybody always makes fun of me on that one. But when you go back to Allison, what we saw, we had 25 to 30 years of data, and we had a lot more homes to get water in it. I better move on, huh? Anyhow, we're investing a lot in this infrastructure, and I know the commissioner's here, and I appreciate him being here, because we've been working close with the county. A lot of the areas, in certain areas of town, the biggest areas has been the outfalls and drainage ditches outside of Deer Park. So it's been really important to work with not only the commissioner and Harris County Flood, but even Pasadena, because a lot of these areas impact both of our cities, because there's some drainages on the border of Deer Park and Pasadena, and all very willing participants to work together to try to address these drainage issues. And I look forward to these projects, commissioners, and thank you for working with us on that. Sanitation. We have, in my opinion, the best sanitation department, and it's always interesting to me. There's a common theme when people that move out of Deer Park and they go to our neighboring communities, and I'm tempted to kind of kick on a couple of them because they're all here. But I love my neighboring communities. But it's always funny. Everybody's like, man, I really miss the trash service. I mean, of all the things you miss in the city of Deer Park, it's the trash service. But it goes to state of the high quality of our departments and the jobs that they do, and the standard of service that they expect, and the funding sources of how we fund all that. Interesting facts of what they do here in Deer Park on a daily basis. 55 miles, one truck drive every day, picking up 91 tons of garbage. Street and sanitation, investing in our infrastructure. We've reached a point in Deer Park where we now have stuff that's in the 50 to 75-year-old aspects, and we're having to spend a lot of money reinvesting in our infrastructure. Street striping, synchronization on East Boulevard, it's always an interesting topic. Everybody wants to know, why is that not lined up where I can just go right through them? Why does it have to stop me? Well, I don't know. Well, because it does. Our water treatment plant. Again, investing in our infrastructure to make sure we have the capabilities to meet the needs in the future moving forward. Substantial investment, 10-year project. Covers a lot of the areas of things that we're investing in our infrastructure. A lot of big dollars. So when you look at the aspect of going back to reducing our revenues by $1 million, this is where a lot of that would go, outside of our M&O. Yeah, I have to admit, in some aspects of schooling, and especially working on my MBA, there's a lot of strategic importance of how do you quantify when you make adjustments in your process, is how can you document and make sure what you did is achieving the results. And so I wanted to use this in kind of an aspect of how do we connect the dots in the city of Deer Park in regards to looking at this from a balanced performance scorecard perspective. And it was interesting to me as Kristen and I worked together on this, of how it so lined up very similar to the processes that we have in regards to our strategy processes and how do we get things done. And the accomplishments that we've had in the last 5 to 10 years have been phenomenal, and it's been because we've had a tremendous effort from staff and from council working together to get these things done as we work through and quantify the strategies and then go about getting it done, which is what most people want, right? An efficient government working on their behalf to make sure we have all the stuff we take for granted for until it doesn't work. I wanted to end back with this right here. Let's start with why. To deliver exemplary municipal services that provide the community a high quality of life consistent with our history, our culture, and our unique character. I believe the city has done that. I thank the council and the staff for working hard to provide this. And from my perspective, the future of the city of Deer Park is in good shape, and I'm proud to be a part of it. So thank you so much for attending today. Mr. Culp, do you have anything that you need to add?
Yeah, one thing.
Oh, really? I shouldn't have asked him that. Go ahead.
Isn't it a great day to be in Deer Park?
Thank you so much.